May I start, sir?
He starts.
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. It is my privilege to welcome you all to this session of the Faculty Development Program on Research Oriented Technical Writing 2026. Today, we are honored to have Dipankar Dev sir with us. We are grateful to Dipankar Dev sir for kindly accepting our invitation and sparing valuable time to share expertise with us. Now, with your permission, I would like to briefly introduce our esteemed speaker. Professor Dipankar Dev is a professor at the Center for Intelligence and Robotics, Indian Institute of Technology, Mandi. He received his bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from NIT Karnataka, Surathkal in 2000. MS from the University of Florida, USA in 2004, and PhD from the University of Virginia, Charlottesville, USA in 2007 under the supervision of Professor Gang Toy. Professor Dev has a rich blend of academic and industrial experience. He served as assistant professor in the Department of Electrical Engineering at IIT Guwahati from 2010 to 2012 and subsequently worked as a lead engineer at GE Global Research Bangalore from 2012 to 2015. He has also gained industrial research experience in the USA. He later served as faculty member of the Institute of Infrastructure Technology, Research and Management, Ahmedabad, where he became Professor of Electrical Engineering. At IIT Mandi, Professor Dev serves as faculty in charge and director of incubation IIT Mandi Catalyst Professor CAIR and coordinator Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. He is also associated with the Intellectual Property and Technology Transfer Cell of IIT Mandi, contribution of innovation, entrepreneurship, intellectual property, and technology commercialization. Professor Dev has recently taken up several important national responsibilities. He is an external independent member of the Apex Committee R&D Board, Coal India Limited for July 2026 to June 2028. He has also been nominated as a member of the Technical Program Committee at the Anusandhan National Research Foundation for the Advanced Research Grant Program in Mechanical Manufacturing, Aerospace and Robotic Engineering for July 2026 to June 2029. He is a senior member of IEEE, fellow of IETE and IE, and life member of ISTE. His research interests include control theory and system, adaptive and nonlinear control, stability analysis, artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, renewable energy systems, and intelligent infrastructure system. Professor Dev has made significant contributions to research through SI indexed journal publications, international conference papers, books, and patents. He has authored several books with reputed publishers, including Springer and elsewhere, and serves as a book series editor for studies in infrastructure and control theory and applications. We are indeed privileged to have such a accomplished academician and researchers with us today. On behalf of the organizing committee and all the participants, I extended a very warm welcome to you. Without taking much of your valuable time, I now request Professor Dipankar Dev sir to kindly deliver today's lecture. Please welcome sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a very long and kind and long introduction. Thank you so much. So my talk for today is arguments. I hope everyone can see my screen. Please confirm.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So my talk for today as was also sent to you by an email. It is arguments, contributions, and dealing with criticisms pertaining to research. So, what is an argument? So, all these topics, argument, contribution, and dealing with criticism, these are dealt with in my book, Engineering Research Methodology, which was published in 2019 by Springer. This is the book cover for that. So I'll be dealing with all these three topics today: arguments, contributions, and dealing with criticism. They are all actually linked together. They are not independent completely. They have their own independent standing, but they also are interlinked to the other points. So, what is an argument? So, basically, it is not an argument that a friend has with another friend. It is a logical and scientific way of communicating to the external world, to the reviewer, to the associate editor, to the editor in chief, to the reader, even after a paper is published. Ultimately, the paper is published so that it will be read, right? So even beyond the acceptance, mere acceptance of the paper, the or mere acceptance of the contributions of any research, it has to be accepted by the community of academics, community of researchers in that field, and things like that. So this acceptance, it comes from what we have already written. Understand that it is based on our written communication, okay, with the all these people, the reader, the reviewer, the associate editor, the editor in chief, and so on and so forth. So this communication with them has to be done through what we call as an argument, which should include giving them good reasons to accept whatever we have said or whatever we have concluded or whatever we have deciphered in our research output. It can be a book, it can be a patent, it can be a manuscript for a journal publication. But it all starts with providing good reasons for acceptance. Now, giving good reasons for acceptance will not just automatically happen. One has to develop skills in argument to be able to do so. This is a skill which has to be acquired. Just because we know that, yes, we must convey some good reason for others to accept our work, it will not automatically happen. It is an acquired skill. Just like people say leadership is an acquired skill. Similarly, argument in a research publication is also an acquired skill. It has to be acquired with a lot of hard work, but with a lot of observation. Okay, Aristotle observed different species, and that is why he was known as the father of zoology more than 400 years before the Christian era. So science originated through observation. Similarly, these arguments have to come through observation of how good authors, well accomplished authors, how they communicate their research work. Argument is, like I said, a core tool. Just like your mathematical skill set, your ability to run a simulation, your ability to perform a hardware experiment in a hardware, means knowing how to operate it, all these things contribute to the research publication, right? And these are core tools to develop new knowledge. Similarly, argument is also a core tool to develop new knowledge and convince other people that yes, these are the reasons why you may consider accepting this out. The argument is the process of giving reasons to believe a claim. Argument is a process. So it is not simply because I say that yes, this is a very good result. This has never been accomplished before. Just saying like this will not work. Logically, one must provide sufficient and enough reasons to believe the claims that we are making. Obviously, every section of a manuscript will include a lot of claims. Yes, sorry for the noise. So, argument is a process of giving reasons to believe a claim. So we must provide sufficient reasons why other people should accept what we are trying to say. And it should naturally happen. It cannot happen by brute force. You can't just say that, or you can't just say this is, and you can't also over exaggerate. You can't say this work has never been done before, this kind of work. And if someone finds even a part of it have been done before, then based on that, they will be even more determined to reject your work. So one should not overemphasize the contribution. We'll come to contribution, but this overemphasis or emphasis is done through argument. This is the process of justifying our contribution. So contribution is also part of this talk, but argument is a process by which we justify what is our contribution. Okay, it is important for communicating research. In fact, it is very integral to communicating of research. And like I say, integral to the actual research plan. It is not just integral to the write-up itself or to the paper or the manuscript itself. It is also integral to how a research will be organized. So it has to, the baby is incubated and born when a manuscript is ready for submission. But it is nurtured long back through an actual research plan. And argument is a integral part of the research plan itself. How we will implement it, why, what is the process by which we will do so, not just the sequence, but logical reasons why we are particularly interested in solving this problem in this way. This has to be there in the genesis of the problem formulation itself. Then only the argument will naturally be visible through your writing. Other people can actually see it without, means they can actually comprehend what you are trying to say and why it is so significant. It cannot happen by brute force. There is always a possibility of asking why a particular statement should be accepted. A reviewer, a reader, a associate editor, an editor in chief, they can always ask a counter argument. They can always pose a counter argument why whatever you have said is wrong, why it cannot be accepted. When the reviewer rejects your work or writes negative comments for the paper to be rejected, he or she also gives arguments. Before the challenge, so he will challenge it, he or she will ultimately challenge it, because obviously there are only certain number of volumes in a journal. There are only certain number of issues. That means, what I mean by that is, any reputed journal, maybe let's say it is published only quarterly. So in one volume, let's say the volume is for that papers published in that year. So they have 4 issues. Every quarter there is one issue. So one issue may have 20, 25, 30 papers, let's say. So the number of papers that they can accept is limited. Even if the quality of the submissions is very high, not all papers will get accepted, right? So there are people, there will be experts who are engaged. I will not say paid because most reviewers are not paid. They are engaged by the network of academic community, by the associate editors, editors in chief, to select those 20, 25, 30 odd papers in one issue and maybe 120 odd papers in a year throughout the world. So they will definitely find reasons to reject a paper. So they will pose arguments to reject it. And if your work doesn't include enough strong arguments why the contribution should be accepted, it becomes very easy to reject a particular paper. So every reason given is a statement that can be challenged again. Every reason that is given can again be challenged. So that is why there is revision 1, revision 2, revision 3, because anything where we fail to completely convince the reviewer or our arguments are not strong enough, will, in fact, your argument may be very strong and still the reviewer can come up with counter argument which is equally strong or more stronger. And definitely, if you don't spend enough time and effort to come up with a solid argument, then for sure, it is very easy to plug holes into your arguments. And so, very, very important. And only when there it is not possible. So, this chain of counter arguments and arguments will end when it may conclude when a claim of new knowledge needs no further justification. When it is not possible, when whatever you have said is conclusive almost or close to conclusive, when it cannot be logically challenged further. So you can fasten this process by asking preemptively what other people, what the reviewers may ask and addressing it in the paper itself beforehand. So this is the core of what is an argument. So default acceptance of claims. Now we are making claims and we want people to accept it, right? How does our claim become accepted by default? Okay. Something that comes from an authoritative source. If we are citing, that is why citing a source is very important in any research publication. We should spend sufficient time in selecting what are our appropriate references. We should not, it is not a good idea. Some people do this, but it is very destructive. Don't select papers of your friends or from your neighbor lab or whatever. Some people who say you cite my paper, I cite your paper. These are all academic dishonesty. And actually, if you do that, more than, of course, these are academically dishonest, and if it is proven, it badly affects your research career, but it also makes the argument weak. The argument that you are trying to make to get your paper accepted is best made when you have not been biased in selecting the references, when you have tried your best to select the best references possible. Okay, so very important that you select those references which are not only very well connected or form the foundational basis of your work, but also are from authoritative source, from top journals, okay, from top authors, because based on the reputation of the reference that you are providing, your argument becomes stronger. Based on the reference of an author that you are citing, based on that basis itself, who is an expert in the field, whose work is known to be flawless, whose work is known to have good arguments and good contributions, it is easier for you to make that logical leap of or get that acceptance. I'm not talking about acceptance of the manuscript, but acceptance from the reader or the reviewer to not challenge your work unnecessarily. So a reputed journal if you cite, a reputed expert in the field if you cite, all these things can make your, it can contribute to default acceptance of the claims. Also, when something fits in with what we already know or call common knowledge, when what you are trying to say falls in line with what is already accepted by experts. I'm not saying that you should only do things which are already accepted by experts. Then you will not come up with some very seminal change or a significant contribution, right? But when you are actually not making a very significant contribution, but it is a contribution nevertheless, and there are other works which have some connection to what you are doing, although you are also making some important contribution. In that case, because you are relying on common knowledge in that field, it can lead to default acceptance of your claims. And so your the acceptance of what you are trying to do becomes easier. Now let us look at what I call as beyond the default acceptance. When default acceptance is not happening, what can be done? So often new knowledge needs rigorous defending to the research community. When default acceptance is not happening, then you have to push forth your arguments very rigorously. There should not be any loopholes. This defense needs good arguments. What are good arguments? Something for which evidence is there, and not only the evidence is there, it is also well structured. The evidence is not haphazard here and there and there. Okay, the proof, the simulation results, the experiments, the logically two different arguments connected together, all these things. For the reader, it is an evidence. And that evidence, if it is well structured, well organized, well referred in internally in that manuscript, then it can create acceptance beyond the default, beyond the obvious or the default acceptance scenarios. So if there is a concept in what you are claiming, it must be there in the evidence that you have provided. No concept in the evidence may stand by itself. You have given some, you are stating some concept in that evidence. It will not stand by itself, right? It has to rely on other contributions, other things which you have well structured, hopefully, in your manuscript. So these rules help formulate arguments which are robust and not open to attack. Just if for on arguments, if you want to remember one sentence, please try to remember this, that whatever you are arguing or postulating in your work, they should be robust and something that cannot be easily attacked by the reviewers. Ask yourself repeatedly, be your own reviewer. Ask your supervisor to give you reasons why or give you reasons why this work is not yet up to the mark. Okay, give some strong reasons. Once you have that, then you will be able to, over time, come up with arguments which are robust and which cannot be easily broken down by the reviewer, okay, which are not easily open to attack. So, so a good research formulation should be able to convince someone of something and withstand scrutiny. Because remember, your work will enter into the prior art only when others will say so, only when others will accept that yes, it is a good contribution. You may call it biased. Some people call this as mafia. Okay, some people have ganged up and they don't allow other people's work to be accepted, whatever. Ultimately, you can't give certificate to yourself, right? You can't say that I am a very great researcher, but no one accepts my work. That will not be a clinching success, right? That will not give you acceptance in the research community. So we have to always be able to convince something, someone of something, or something of someone, both ways. And it should be able to, whatever we are producing, whatever we are submitting, should be able to withstand this scrutiny. Research is to be planned from an, this I have already said, you have to plan your research from the point of view of arguments or sequence of arguments, not from the point of view of action. That is, I will do this, then this will happen, then this one I will put here, then this will happen, then this I will do, this will happen. This is called action sequence perspective. That is also okay, but it is not a very, it will never give you very good papers. It will give you, it will be a process by which you can communicate your results. Maybe it will get published in some journals, even sometimes in good journals, but it is not a very foolproof way of getting your work communicated. Okay. So arguments should be based on, this series of arguments should be based on your logical arrangements. Okay. Not based on sequence of activities. Okay. Apart from this, there are two types of arguments: the deductive argument and the inductive argument. An argument which has a conclusion that can be considered proven means you have concluded something in your argument, and by the sheer arrangement of your words or equations or whatever you have used, or a plot or whatever, by the sheer arrangement, whatever you have concluded, that can be considered proven by others. These are called deductive arguments. Such arguments can be attacked. Attacked means the reviewer can debunk or destroy your this argument only by attacking the evidence statements. Means whatever you have given as evidence, if they are able to attack the evidence, then only these kind of arguments, the deductive arguments, can be attacked or null and voided. The other type of arguments are the inductive arguments, where the conclusion that you have given will be considered strong. It will not be considered proven. Okay, proven is something more stronger than the strong. Okay, sometimes your conclusions cannot be fully considered universally proven. Why? You can say, no, but without proof, how can something be accepted? No, you have some proof. I will call it strong. Why? Because you cannot prove, or you probably cannot prove it under all kind of conditions. And so, from a researcher's point of view, trying to understand whether your work has created a real impact, has caused a paradigm shift or not, that will unless it has caused a paradigm shift, it will be considered only as a strong argument and not a, where the conclusion is will be considered only as a strong, not as proven. And such arguments will be called inductive arguments. So there will be a significant number of in fact there will be more inductive arguments in a paper than a deductive argument. Deductive arguments are almost like game set and match, right? If you have only way your deductive arguments will not get a paper acceptance is if your arguments are done well, but they are not well connected, or the reviewer has missed some important aspects and things like that. Reviewer was in a great hurry or whatever. But in most cases, deductive argument, if it is possible, then it will lead to an acceptance of a paper sooner or later. Inductive arguments are something that everything else other than deductive arguments are inductive arguments. Anything else which is not even an inductive argument is not an argument at all. Okay. So inductive arguments will gain strength through addition of evidence. You provide more and more evidence and it becomes stronger and stronger. Sometime after many years of work in that field, maybe it will become that work will now contain, we started with inductive arguments, now will contain deductive argument. So deductive argument is a much more difficult, challenging scenario, which will not happen in all cases, and in some cases it will happen only with a lot of experience. Apart from this, what we should know is what are failed arguments. Arguments may fail on many counts, okay, and need to be guarded against. There is not one or two reasons. Any reason can be there. Under many different grounds, arguments may fail. If the reviewer did not read carefully, also argument may fail because it didn't serve the purpose. Now you may say, it is not my fault. Reviewer didn't read, but it is your loss. So it is definitely possible to ensure that the reviewer's response is kinder or more positive if you have spent enough time giving thought to this, how to make your work more acceptable to the reviewer. Okay. An argument can also fail if you have given good evidence, but that is irrelevant. If you give evidence that is irrelevant to the problem at hand, it will fail. If insufficient foundation is there, then what will happen? When it is attacked, it will just fall apart like a pack of cards. Okay. And if your arguments do not match the scope of the claims, and so doesn't match the scope of the evidence, if there is a mismatch between what you are claiming and what evidence you are providing, then also the arguments have failed. So with that understanding of arguments, let us move to contributions. Obviously, we want our contribution to be accepted, and for that we are using these arguments, right? So let us understand what becomes a contribution. Any newly developed knowledge is added to the prior art when others say so. I already told you that any knowledge, any newly developed knowledge will get added to the prior art when others will say, yes, it is acceptable. Then only it will get accepted. It cannot be accepted just because someone has thought that it will be accepted. Okay. Peer researchers determine if proposed outcome is a contribution or not. We may think that it is a contribution, but it can become a contribution only if others will say so. Others means peer researchers. community, that is the research community in a field, they are the customers who decide if the output is a contribution. People say customer is the king, right? So like this, the reviewers, the end even today, I mean, many people paper gets retracted. If the reviewers did not do a good job, reviewers, associate editors, editors didn't do a good job. There may be someone in the among the reading community who finds some problems in what we have done. And then what will happen? The paper will get retracted. Something that was claimed which is not true. So so this is possible if we have failed in our contribution. Okay. So it is easy to know what is a contribution. Something which will be accepted by the community of experts is a contribution. And what is not a contribution? So even if there is new knowledge that you have developed, but if others say that no, it is not new knowledge, then it will not become new knowledge because it will not get accepted. So something is a contribution when others say so that yes, it is a contribution. So it is incumbent upon us as an author, as a researcher, to write our findings with proper arguments, with proper evidences, in such a way that it will get accepted and it will be recognized as a contribution. Okay. This is the objectives of making a contribution to knowledge is not achieved. Even if the you have organized your contributions, you have mentioned them. Generally, contributions are mentioned throughout the paper, but there is one location where it is structurally always present, and that is the penultimate paragraph of the introduction. Why penultimate? Because the last paragraph typically includes like what is there in the second paragraph, third paragraph, fourth paragraph, like that. A summary is usually there in the last paragraph, but the paragraph just before that, that includes where all the literature survey has already happened. And now, what is it that you are doing more? What is it that will that you have done, which will take this state of the art beyond what it is currently? That those set of bullet points or points mentioned is the list of contributions. So objective of making a contribution to knowledge should be achieved. If it is not achieved, then it doesn't become a contribution. Okay, for whatever reason, if it is not achieved. If you write in a way that people miss it, they don't read it, then also it doesn't become a contribution. Okay. So how to be certain that one's new knowledge is acceptable contribution? How can you be certain? You cannot be 100% certain ever. But if you structurally, if you put your logical arguments in place, if every section, at the end of every section, there is a short summary, it can be one sentence also. What was there in this section and what will be there in the next section. Okay, if things are well connected, if people know what to expect where, okay, if people easily can find, my advisor used to say, helping people will help you. Okay, what he means is you should write in such a way that whoever the reviewer, associate editor, they can easily find what they are looking for. Okay, so how you are helping them? You are helping them by organizing your thoughts in a logical way, by putting the right things at the right places. Then they can find it easily. If they can find it, you get the benefit because your work gets accepted. Okay, so the task is to minimize this risk that they may miss what you are trying to say. Okay, then it means minimize your contribution to be not accepted as a contribution. As long as you can do that, the paper will ultimately get accepted. Even if the reviewer is a hard taskmaster, still the best way to get your paper accepted. And in fact, reviewer can even help you increase the scope and the impact of your work if you address the comments by addressing these by from this perspective that your contribution should be recognized or understood well. So, like I said, contribution is something or anything that we do becomes a contribution when others will say so. So others say their view through a very standard process known as the peer review process. Okay, people ask, have you published in peer reviewed journal? Yeah, it means, what is a peer reviewed journal? Peer reviewed journal means someone from the same academic community will review what you have done. It will not just get accepted and published just by your submitting. It is not like putting your paper in a website, okay, that you just submitted and it got available for anyone to see. That is not a peer review process, right? Peer review process means someone from the same academic community, they will look at your work and give you comments, eventually accept your work or reject it. But it is like there is a balloon where there is air. You are trying to put new air inside that balloon. The job of these reviewers is to prevent only good air to come inside the balloon. Understand in this way. Okay, so selected experts review the work to recommend acceptance or rejection, right? This is the peer review process. The researcher, so knowing that this is the peer review process, this is actually the most fair process. Okay. Knowing that, the researcher needs to understand what the reviewers expect from us. So for this, I say that, sometimes people say, read the scope of the journal. Okay. If you read the scope of the journal, you will know what kind of papers they will accept. But I will say, do more than that. Simply reading what is there in the scope of the journal is not enough. Why? Because the journal may have started 15, 20 years ago. Maybe they have not updated in their website very recently the scope. But understand that the reviewers are changing, the associate editors, the editor-in-chief of that journal are changing. They are continuously accepting new and different kinds of papers. So look at also the recent published papers in that journal. What is the scope of the journal based on the last 1 or 2 years of papers published? It may or may not be exactly same as the scope of the journal which is written in their website. What is written in the website may be something slightly different from what is the actual scope of the journal based on recent accepted work. So if you submit your paper to the right journal who are accepting the kind of work that you are working on, or the kind of contributions that you are working on, they are looking for such papers, then your chances of getting acceptance in that journal becomes higher. Also, the reviewers will also see what kind of work the other researchers would like to see, the readers will like to see. This is also the job of the reviewer. They are supposed to block those works which are considered to be substandard or something of not interest much anymore to the people or the readers of that journal in that field. So once we understand this, it will be very easy for us to know what will actually become a contribution and what will not. So these subtleties define what a research community considers to be a contribution. Okay, so this is contribution. Contributions have to be there in a paper, but they will get accepted only if they are argued well or only if They are backed by proper arguments. So these are arguments and contributions. We have looked at these. A final aspect, this is something I don't always touch upon whenever I talk about arguments and contributions, but sometimes I do. And these arguments and contribution is one chapter in my book that I showed you. And dealing with criticisms is also another one. This is something, a very broad topic dealing with criticism. There are a lot of psychological aspects, mental health aspects, and things like that. I will not get into all those kinds of aspects of dealing with criticisms. I am going to stick to arguments and contributions in terms of dealing with criticisms. How can we deal with criticism? By properly arguing our contributions better. Okay. Understand that no one is criticizing you as a person. They are criticizing the work. So dealing the work from the person. If you think, oh, they are telling me this is some very poor work, pathetic, oh, the English is non-understandable, there is no head or tail, whatever they are saying, whatever strong criticism they are making, it is a criticism of your writing, of your work, not you as a person. As long as you can dealing that, you will be able to deal with this criticism. Criticisms can deflate a researcher, but it is invariable. If you want to have high impact factor journals, if you want to publish in them, then you cannot avoid these criticisms. You have to make yourself robust to such criticisms. Just as unexpected experimental results are possible, so adverse comments are also like that. You should not think that, say, you are working on something and you can get some, if you are very attentive in your experiments, you may get some, you may observe some results which you didn't expect. Okay. So that is like a plus for you, right? Like this, it may happen that you didn't expect some criticism. You thought that मैं submit कर दूंगा और 15 दिन में accept हो जाएगा transactions. But just like unexpected experimental results are possible only if you are very attentive, like that, criticisms you can avoid only if you are very attentive. Some suggestions I do give over here, that take a particular comment at a time. Address whenever you, I also say another thing very important in editing. I've edited many books and many journals, articles of all kinds, technical and non-technical as well. And one thing that I suggest is that whenever you are writing something, if you find an error, fix it at that time, at that moment, even if it's a small typo or something like that. Fix it at that very moment. Don't wait that, okay, I will finish all these things and later I will sit one day and correct all my grammatical errors or correct all my spelling mistakes and things like that. No. As soon as you trace an error, fix it. Sometimes some people think that, no, I'm not fixing it now because there will be so many and some of these things may get automatically fixed. And so why to fix it now itself? I will again, later I will do. No. Sometimes you may miss if you don't. The golden rule of editing is as soon as you find an error, fix it. Because the cost of finding, for the reviewer to find an error like that, what it will mean, even if it's a very like a spelling mistake, the reviewer will conclude that, oh, this guy is not very careful. This guy is, there may be so many mistakes. Just by this percept, just by having one or two such errors, it creates a negative impression in the reviewer that maybe there are hundreds of such errors. So that's why very important to fix those errors to be able to shield ourselves from these criticisms from reviewers. At the same time, many times I have seen that the reviewers' critical feedback actually enhances the quality of the work. If we can actually prepare ourselves to address those comments, then sometimes we could not think about a particular aspect. And the reviewer asked us a certain question which makes us think, and then we find, oh, that's a very important point, and that is something we can do, that is something this work can accomplish. And then the quality of the work increases like anything. So that is why one should be open to such criticism, such feedback. Sometimes people don't submit to some high ranking journals thinking that, oh, there will be a lot of criticism, there it will be very hard, so let me publish in 5 different low quality journals. But there is no use. If you publish in, if your paper gets accepted without much criticism, then either you are really a very great researcher by birth, which is generally unlikely. What is more likely is that you have tried to avoid seeing criticism and want to get a very easily published paper. But then what will happen is that will be a low quality journal. And it is better to publish 1 or 2 papers in high quality journals than 5, 6 low quality journals. So our time and effort should be spent in expanding the horizon, in making actual contributions. And for that, we should be open to these kind of criticisms. So, but there are some structured guidelines as well. Okay. When we respond to the reviewers, we should provide a summary since the last revision, whatever we have done. Make life easy. Again, the golden rule of my supervisor, that helping people will help you. So help the reviewer to remember what was done in the last one. He shouldn't again search his email and find the last revision, right? Give a short summary of what was done in the last revision and then begin responding to the queries. Response should not miss any of the points raised by the reviewers. What you should not, reviewer should not need to say to the associate editor, this guy addressed 3 of my comments but ignored my 2 other comments. That is a very bad thing which can be easily avoided. Respond each query with a direct answer. Don't do hand waving, lagbhag, or with some approximate sense and things like that. If you know the answer, give a direct answer. If you think that it is beyond the scope of this particular work, then give adequate reasons with proper argument why this work, that this addition that reviewer is saying is not something that is actually appropriate in the current context. You have to justify. If you don't want to do, it is not that you have to do everything that the reviewer asks. But generally, reviewer, being an expert in the field, will make logically valid suggestions. So you should not very easily, it is not very easy that you can just avoid addressing the comment of a reviewer. 99% of the time you have to address. I remember once or twice I actually I gave reasons why this manuscript should not include what the reviewer is stating, even though he has made a valid comment. And the reviewer actually accepted that argument. So if you write with proper arguments, things will be, it is possible to actually get what you actually want to do through in that work. Because sometimes you may feel that if I do all these things that the reviewer is asking, maybe the paper will get diluted. So if you don't want to get onto that track, you must um, justify with proper arguments. Okay. These criticisms that I'm talking, I've dealt extensively on about reviewers, but you can consider your supervisor or research advisor to be also a reviewer, in the sense that when you have written a manuscript, you shared with your supervisor, and the supervisor in those in good old days would use a red pen and mark with red pen throughout the paper. Sometimes it can be demoralizing that, oh, I put so much effort and now there is so many red marks all over the place, right? But if one actually understands that if I address these comments, the quality of my paper will actually improve. If one is convinced, if that is really true, if one can agree, accept this argument, then one should put in the effort that it takes. Remember, getting one or two good quality journal papers accepted is much better than getting 5 to 6 average publications. So if one can treat the supervisor's seemingly harsh comments as a pedestal for making contributions through proper arguments, then that also will help one being immune to such criticisms. Okay? So these reviewers or these criticisms can come from your lab mates, can come from your supervisor, can come from the other faculties in your committee, can come from the reviewers, can come from the associate editor. Sometimes what happens, reviewers have accepted, but associate editor says that no, no, this is not as per the scope of this journal. Now you can just abuse the associate editor in your mind, but the better thing to do is, if you can find, if you really dig deep, generally they are right. Generally they are okay to, they are right that the paper is actually good because all the reviewers have now accepted, but it may not be relevant in that journal. So you can even ask the associate editor to recommend a suitable journal where, and when you personally, when you take that initiative, then it is different from sometimes is automatically some journal recommendations come from some publishers. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about when an associate editor or editor makes a personal recommendation. Yes, you submit there. So definitely the chances of acceptance in the eventual acceptance in such journals becomes very high. So that brings me to the last slide of this, and then we'll take questions. So criticisms is actually part of research. Distilling this feedback is very important. Detach criticism from other things, associated ambience. Dispassionately see what is said. If it is something that if you apply in your work, it will help, do that. If it is something that will not be a addition to your research outcome, then filter that out. Filter out actionable and repeatable items from subjective opinions. If there is a subjective opinion, you can not implement it. But if it is an actionable and repeatable item, please act on that. Write useful part without heightened emotions. Sometimes, first paper, I give an example of a student of mine, my first PhD student. He eventually did very good work. Um, he got many highly cited publications. He got a very good high paying job as a consulting data scientist. And during his PhD, he did his PhD in less than 3 years. Just he was waiting for 3 years to be over to get his degree. And he's a guy with a great work ethic and things like that. But like most of us, his first paper got very harsh comments from the review. And he was like very totally, he didn't expect. He just thought that he will submit and the acceptance will come. But life is not like that. Most most papers will, I mean, I don't remember in if at all any of my paper directly got accepted. Some papers got minor revision, but not, I can't think of a single paper which I submitted and just got accepted. I don't think it it happens. Or maybe some people have that experience, but I don't. So I'll be very honest about that. And with this student of mine, he got very harsh comments from the reviewers. But those comments actually, if we look back, actually helped create multiple subsequent papers in the next 1 year. The comments that came, they actually guided many of the things. All the things were not coming from me. All the inputs were not coming from me. All the inputs were not his own. Many of these inputs came from the harsh comments of the reviewers. So they were very, very helpful. So, but one should know how to distill what will actually be useful for our work, and something that will actually not be useful. And it is not that we should incorporate something that is wrong or something that will not be beneficial to us. So that judgment we must make, but we should be able to uh, also not throw out the baby with the bathwater, as they say. So all the comments which actually can enhance the scope of the work, can actually give us new directions of research, they should be accepted with open arms. And we should not sell ourselves less. That don't, just because we don't want any criticism, if we just submit to some Q4 journal or sometimes non-index journals and all, it will not take our abilities or our contributions to the academic community beyond any reasonable limit or reasonable levels that we would want. So with that, I will stop here, and if there are any questions, I would be very happy to take them. At this point, I would like to hear if there are any questions.
Yeah, any queries from the participant side? Okay, so I think there is no any queries, sir. So Shraddha, are you here? Shraddha, are you here?
Yes, sir. Yes,
So
yes, sir.
yeah, can you conclude the session?
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, Professor Dipankar Dev, sir, for enlightening and engaging. Your insights, practical experience, and thoughtful discussions have greatly enriched our understanding of the topic. I'm confident that all the participants have benefited immensely from your expert guidance. We sincerely appreciate the time and efforts you have devoted to the session. On behalf of the organizing committee of ROTW 2026 and all the participants, I express our heartfelt gratitude to you. Once again, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.